Welcome to the Institute.
Let's keep it a beanbag, y'all. The first 2 episodes of the Institute definitely has me locked in to see what more they have in store. I can already tell that this is going to be different from the book, and personally, I love that. I've already done a trailer breakdown, and now that we've seen what the makers of From and Stephen King have cooked up, let's recap the first 2 episodes and talk about a few things. But before I do that, I want to thank all of you for taking the time out to watch my video. And if you're new to Real Enigmas and Theories, welcome. This video will contain spoilers for the first 2 episodes of the Institute and the trailer, just so you know. So without further ado, let's cook. As I said, this show will be different from the novel in some key ways. I talk more about it in my esoteric breakdown that drops tomorrow. I'm not going to do a super play-by-play recap. I'm just going to cover some of the important things and give you my thoughts on what we're seeing so far. So let's jump in. The show starts with the intro sequence theme song, and it's a cover of Shout by Tears for Fears. I dive heavy into this in the esoteric breakdown, but long story short, this song is perfect for the show. We see the main character Luke in a gym taking a test with a bunch of students that look older than him. The entire gym is shocked when Luke announces that he's finished with the test. A few students approach Luke outside of the gym to ask him a question on the test to see if they had got the same answer that he got, and they find out quickly that this 14-year-old is probably the smartest person that they've ever encountered. This girl right here looks like Kelly in From, the girl who got pinned to the tree. I don't know, I don't think so, but it definitely looks like her. I do know that the actress that played Kelly is Phoebe Rex. Is that you, Phoebe? Anyway, these scenes do a great job of establishing the level of genius Luke is on without spending a lot of time actually watching him demonstrate this in detail. This dude is a genius with a sense of humor, and he actually can hold a conversation. He's not withdrawn. So we go to a shot with him outside playing basketball with a friend, and that's where we get to see his house number 47. We also see his Minnesota Timberwolves Kevin Garnett jersey number 21. He goes up for a shot and tears his jersey. That detail is actually important for later, so put that in your back pocket. We're taken to a scene at the airport where another main character named Tim is at the airline, and they seem to have overbooked the flight. And now they're trying to bargain with the passengers to see if anyone wants to give up a seat. This must have been either Spirit or Frontier. Anyway, Tim agrees to give up his seat and skip the flight to New York to do a security detail. Then we see him on the side of the road hitchhiking, and he finds a ride to Maine. Then we move right into dinner at a pizzeria with Luke and his parents. Something about this scene made me wonder if they are really his parents. It just seems like this apple has fallen really far away from the tree, and Luke seems to be a bit misunderstood even by his own parents. But this face bro made right here had me rolling. We see a display of Luke's telekinetic powers and a shady chick sitting in the cut looking like she was plotting on Luke's family, in which my spidey senses was definitely right, because the very next scene, we see her in the car with a couple of shooters looking like they about to do a drive-by on somebody and blame it on Will Smith. Oh look, it's Dylan Bailey who plays in From. He's a townsperson, a stunt double for Harold Perrineau, and a Negro Union soldier. Dude getting his work in over there at the From cast, and now he's over here on the Institute. So they invade Luke's house, drug and abduct him. I'm not sure if they rock and rolled on his parents or not, but we'll find out later probably. Something was off about them anyway. The next scene is Tim parting ways with his ride and finding a help wanted sign for a night walker position. And then we move right on into the next scene with Tim having that interview, and he's talking with Chief Ashworth, played by Martin Roach. He tells him about an incident where he had to take out an assailant who ended up being a 16-year-old boy at the Westfield Mall. That's actually an important detail that I talk more about in my esoteric breakdown. He gets the job and has to start that night at 6 p.m. So Luke wakes up in a room that's just like his own, but he notices that his jersey isn't ripped anymore. Yo, I got a quick question for you. If you woke up in an identical room to your own, do you think you'd know the difference, and how long would it take for you to figure it out? Anyway, let's talk about that rip for a minute. If the decoy KG jersey isn't ripped, then that would mean that they had to been plotting on Luke for a minute. Luke realizes pretty quick that he's not in Kansas anymore, and when he walks out of the room, he meets another abductee or recruit named Kalisha. She's over here sporting the red and white checker pants with the Egyptian cartouche shirt. She even hits him with the Wizard of Oz reference and calls him Toto. This is something that I go deeper into in the esoteric breakdown as well. So he gets the unofficial orientation from Kalisha before she kisses him out of the blue. And I mean, she grabs him out of nowhere, asks him if he's ever had chicken pox, and kisses him right in front of the staff. This was a bit strange to me, mostly because of Stackhouse's reactions. Stackhouse is being played by Julian Richings, and he looks like he could play the man in yellow in From. Now, that whole time, they were being observed by the director, Mrs. Sigsbee, who Stackhouse is bringing Luke to from Zone 6, indicated by Sigsbee's surveillance monitor. Luke gets to Sigsbee's office and meets Dr. Hendricks. Now, while Sigsbee and Hendricks were watching Luke and Kalisha, I could sense a bit of tension between those two. None of the faculty seemed to like each other very much. They seem to be wrapped up in the same greater good BS that Sigsbee tries to pass on to Luke. We get back to Tim starting his night knocker position, and he's meeting some of the other officers who seem to give him a hard time as the new guy. This is where he's giving a no doubt symbolic relic. The concept of the watchman's clock dates back to the 19th century, when cities and industrial facilities needed a way to make sure that their watchmen were truly making their rounds and not playing off. It's a little portable time recording device with an internal paper disc or some tape. Now, at each checkpoint along the patrol route, a key mounted to a wall would be inserted into the clock and turned to stamp the exact time and location on the paper or the tape inside of the device. Watchmen's clocks were widely used throughout the 1800s and most of the 20th century. But as technology advanced, mechanical clocks gradually gave way to the electronic, later digital counterparts. I've seen these things on shows like Boardwalk Empire, Mad Men, and it was even in the movie Dark City. Oh yeah, it was in that classic movie Metropolis too. But I gotta admit, I never seen one in person. Anyway, while Tim's out on his rounds, he meets an older lady named Annie. And even though she seemed a bit quacky, she left an impression on him by calling him his nickname, Sport, given to him by his mother. And she actually told him the reason why his mother chose that name. And she left an impression on him because how would she even know that? His mother named him after the character from the stage play Porgy and Bess, or the movie Porgy and Bess. Porgy and Bess is a 1935 American opera by George Gershwin, and it blended classical music with jazz, blues, and folk to tell stories of a disabled beggar. His name was Porgy, and he tries to rescue the troubled Bess from the clutches of her violent lover Crown and the seductive drug dealer Sport. Now, this work has been praised as one of the greatest American operas, and it's also been criticized for perpetuating negative stereotype. Yet it remains a powerful exploration of love, addiction, faith, and survival. And the music and songs in this joint are totally timeless. But I'm still scratching my head because why would his mother name him after the drug dealer character? I grew up on the 1959 film version where Sammy Davis Jr. played the character Sport. Anyway, I got a little sidetrack right there. We see a scene where that lady who was plotting at the pizzeria, Michelle, is leaving the facility and has to wait for a family in a car who's asking for directions. And look who it is. It's Frank Pratt, played by Bob Mann, a character in From. And he's traveling with his wife and daughter, just like in From. Frank is a character in the pilot episode of From who gets the taste slapped out of his mouth by the main character, Boyd. Meanwhile, back at the Institute, in that very next scene, Luke is taking to get that tracker chip put on his ear, and he ends up getting slapped just like Frank. I thought that was a funny touch because when I saw Frank, I automatically thought about that slap. And then they take us to a scene where the main character gets the BS slapped out of him. I blame Will Smith. So Michelle leaves and heads into town to meet with her journalist girlfriend, and they get a room at the same place where Tim is staying at, the Stanton house. Long story short, Michelle is about to tell her girlfriend about the secret occupation, and her girlfriend pops her in the head from behind at point blank range. Like, I was totally not expecting that. It turns out her journalist girlfriend is actually working for Stackhouse. So we end that first episode with Luke meeting the other kids and talking to one of them about escaping. The one he's talking to is Nick. Now that first episode was dope because it had us understanding the mission, everybody's position, and we saw some kissing and a deleted character taken out of commission. What am I missing? Never mind, let's just get right into episode 2. So episode 2 starts off with Luke dreaming about that kiss and then being rudely awakened by Sigsbee blowing a party kazoo. I mean, I would have used my telekinesis to make one of them dinosaur toys fly off the shelf and bust her upside the head real quick. Let me up out of here. The celebration is a goodbye front half party for Iris, complete with balloons and cake for breakfast. None of them want to see her leave, even though the narrative is that you're closer to going home. This scene really establishes the fact that the recruits fear going to the back half due to the uncertainty. And it really starts to sink in that these people are lying about what's going on, and these kids can sense it. From there, we move to a dope shot of the checkered tile floor at the Stanton house while Tim makes his way downstairs, and he's met by the owner, Mr. Hollister. Hollister wasn't in the book. Instead, he's replacing Miss Ratcher. And his behavior and mannerisms, along with him carrying around that lizard all the time, definitely stands out to me. I think he might be in on things. I mean, last night there was a whole cleanup team there to dispose of a body, and dude seems so wired up to the point to where he wouldn't miss something like that. So he could be in on it, because that institute definitely has some Lumen type reach over this town. And speaking of Lumen type reach, we get a scene where Stackhouse and Sigsbee are speaking to some superior person on an older communication device like the speaker comms in Severance, and they were using their speaker comms to speak to an authority or a superior board. And in this scene, it shows some heavy tension between Stackhouse and Sigsbee. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know how long these people been working with each other, but it's clear that they don't even get along or even slightly like each other. And that could be the chink in the armor that these kids need to free themselves. We move on to Luke's first day of TK testing. He sees Hendrik for the first time since they met, and now it's time to check out how those powers go and get that first dosage of that green drug. Check out what Luke says right here.
Hold still now.
What's in that?
What do you care?
It's going in my arm, man.
I know that's right, Luke. What's in that? Y'all out here injecting people with green Jolly Rancher juice. And y'all got Robert Joy out here looking like Tony Stark's father. But I gotta tell you, this episode gets crazier with Hendrix. Just you wait. We ain't get to that part yet. But when we get there, yeah. Anyway, we move to a scene with Tim stopping Annie from harassing a woman about her deceased daughter. And Annie is definitely tapped into something, but her bandwidth is high, but her processing speed is low, if you catch my drift. But she's definitely a sweet lady, and Tim does the right thing by being gentle with her, for sure. Then an officer shows up there acting like he's got some smoke with Tim, but Tim smooths it out, and they part ways without incident. Then we get right back to the lab with Luke exercising his TK abilities, which leaves him exhausted. He's able to levitate an object purposely for the first time, and it takes a toll on him. Maureen escorts him back to the room and gives him a piece of gum. And she seems a little bit soft on everybody. She tries to connect with the kids. She's also the one who passes out the tokens. And when Iris was going to the back half, she held Iris's hand. Maybe she's connecting with them to earn trust, or she's actually kind of sympathetic to what's going on. I don't know yet, but she's definitely standing out as one of the nicer employees of the Institute. Yo, here we go. We get a shot of Sigsbee walking down the hallway to this room that looks like one of the basements in From, and it's set up like the storage room in the diner. This place is full of board games and items that you will find in a child's room. Most likely the surplus of trinkets used to clone the rooms of the abductees, or it could be where they put all the stuff when they're done. Nonetheless, this place looks like a twisted thrift store, and Sigsbee is sitting up in here sniffing teddy bears. I noticed Iris had bears on her sweater too. But anyway, it turns out that Sigsbee is waiting for Hendrix to get there and is a bit peeved when he's late. It also turns out that old Henry is Sigsbee's work husband, and he's not coming there to count inventory. He's about to sort through a bush of gray pubes and get busy with Sigsbee. Maybe play a little switch and go afterwards. Yo, she asked bro if he took his pills, and he opens his jacket and said, "Can't you tell?" I hollered. But the part that really had me on the floor was when he asked her if she had the jump rope. Now, what the hell y'all about to do with that jump rope, Hendrix? This was not in the book, and it took me totally by surprise. Henry clapping Sigsbee's cheeks is the last thing I thought would be on this show. And Sigsbee is mean with it. She requested that Hendrix not talk. I mean, they smashing in the twisted thrift store. Something else I failed to mention is that Sigsbee goes home and inflicts pain on herself by branding with a hot piece of metal, and she likes it too. None of this was in the book, so I think we're definitely in for a wild ride. Oh yeah, during the scene with her branding her arm, we hear the song Werewolves of London by Warren Zevon. I thought it was an interesting choice with the Timberwolves jersey in there. Wolf isn't actually a technical stock term, but it is marketing lingo. And I think that the tokens have to do with cryptocurrency. I talk a little bit more about that in my esoteric breakdown too. We move on to a scene with Luke and Nick working on a plan to escape. They've come to the conclusion that they need a powerful telepath. And Luke asks about that smokestack coming from the other building across the way. And Nick tells him that happens every week or so. I wonder what that is. They didn't really give us anything else about it. They just drew the attention to it by having Luke ask about it. Anyway, George is inside practicing a trick to reclaim the tokens from the vending machine after receiving the goods purchased. I think this is a reference to cryptocurrency as well, and I get into this on the esoteric breakdown too. Tim gets ready for his night knocking shift and stops by a store to grab some coffee and gets acquainted with the owner while lending a hand with some of the inventory. The owner extends free coffee and Tim starts his shift. But later that night, while Tim is making his runs, he stops by to see Annie. And she's sitting there playing a concertina that someone had thrown away. And I thought that this was interesting. Why drop that in there? Charles Wheatstone, who invented the concertina, also pioneered the electric telegraph. He helped shape how people came to imagine invisible forces transmitting information and causing action at a distance. And these types of concepts later paralleled telepathy and telekinesis. The concertina made hidden air pressure translate into sound. Telegraphs encoded thoughts into electrical signals that traveled unseen through wires and decoded far away. This concept is an actual mirror of mental communication without speech. The idea that electric currents could remotely trigger bells or levers echoes the notion of telekinesis all the way around. And in the 19th century, spiritualists and occult thinkers borrowed that scientific lingo to describe the brain as a telegraph or imagining thought waves through the ether. Now, don't get me wrong. Long before Wheatstone, ancient cultures held similar visions. It's just that Wheatstone's inventions tapped into these older intuitions about unseen currents, and it kind of links everything together. There's no doubt that that's why they put that concertina in the Institute. That's Jack Bender level symbolism right there. I mean, what else can I say? Not only that, we see the Institute trying to tap into that same concept by weaponizing the gifts of these young children. Anyway, while Tim is meeting Annie, he hears shots fired near that store that he'd visited earlier. He rushes over there and chases off the robbers without a weapon. Also saves the life of the store owner who'd been shot. I mean, bro saved this man with some tape, Vaseline, and a diaper. Real MacGyver type-ish, you dig? Then that cop that had some smoke for Tim earlier pulls up late and not knowing what to do. But Tim gives him some orders to call for rescue and ends up shedding himself of the credit for what he did. Meanwhile, Stackhouse is pulling up on Hendrix to do some slick stuff behind Sigsbee's back. I think he's actually mad because Sigsbee's letting Hendrix smash and not him. The episode ends with a new child being brought into the Institute, and Kalisha discovers that this kid is a powerful telepath, just what Nick and Luke needed to enact their plan. So there it is, the recap and commentary on the Institute's first 2 episodes and a bit of history. And if you haven't already, go watch my trailer breakdown for the show and stay tuned for my esoteric breakdown for the first 2 episodes dropping tomorrow. And if you like this video, go ahead and do all that dope YouTube stuff to push this video and spread awareness to the show. And if you're not already subbed, I blame Will Smith, and hopefully this is the video that'll make you do it. That's all for my video this evening. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.